everyone, welcome back to Feather Stitch House. My name's Rebecca and each week on this channel I make videos about embroidery and textile art to help you get creative. We're in week 16 of our Winging It project, Pick of the Pots, and if you don't know what Winging It is, each year I run an improvised textile art project called Winging It. This year we're focusing on random picks from my 3 pots. One contains colours, the second contains shapes and the third contains stitches. We draw one from each pot and use those prompts to make an improvised piece of textile art. This is a really low demand project that you can dip in and out of to your heart's content. If a week's picks don't inspire you, then leave that one out, or you can challenge yourself to try and make something from every set of picks. We had a lovely pick last week, and thank you so much for all your wonderful comments about the hanging basket piece that I made on camera. I wonder what we're going to get this week. I'm going to head into my studio and let's get picking. Right, my favourite time of the week. It's been some awkward picks over the last couple of weeks, so let's see if we get something good today. Oh, let me start the timer. I've got a bit of anxiety now after our dodgy picks. Lilac. Right, so nice April colour as a starting point. Let's get a shape. Please be a good one. Kite shape. Oh, this could be nice, couldn't it? Kite shape. Oh, please be a good stitch. I'm scared to look. Oh, what is it? French knot. Oh, yay! We could do something. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got... I think it's versatile stitches that really we want to pick out, but not every stitch is that versatile. I think that's going to be an okay combination. So we've got the colour lilac, we've got kite shape and French knot. So I will demo a French knot. I've got some tips that are going to help you. I know that many people out there are going to have despaired that a French knot had come out because knots can be tricky, but I will show you how to get a good result every time. I promise it works. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. I'm going to get my thinking cap on and see what we can do with this. I think this is going to be mostly embroidery today. We'll see. Right. Okay, I'm going to go and get my stuff to demo the stitch and then we will create something. Okay, here's my hoop. I'm going to demonstrate the stitch. I know it's not lilac, but the lilac thread that I'd got is almost the same colour as the fabric in the background. I thought you might struggle a little bit to see it. So, French knots always split the crowd. Some people love them, some people hate them. The reason you hate them often is because they never work. So what I'm going to do is show you how to get a great result every time. So I've got my thread, I've knotted the end, and I'm just going to come up through the fabric from the back. Now this is a two-handed stitch. You are going to need both hands, so if you can work in a frame, that's great, or you're going to have to do some creative finger work to hold your fabric in place. So the key to a French knot is tension, always. I'm going to hold my working thread towards myself under tension, and what I want to do is sit my needle perpendicular to the thread just on the top. Okay, and I'm going to wrap my thread. I'm going to do it 3 times. I know that's going to anger some people, but I'm going to do it 3 times because I want you to be able to see the knot really clearly. Now, a good trick to practice is your tension on the thread at this point, because if your tension's too loose, when you roll your needle forwards and backwards, your thread is going to distort. So it'll open up here and gather up, but it's gathering up by twisting over itself here. So that tells you that your thread is too loose. If it's too tight, you won't be able to move that needle at all. So what you want is tension that is enough to keep the thread secure without distorting, but loose enough that you can move your needle up and down. So this motion here is a really good thing to practice for all knot stitches really. You want to be able to roll your needle up and down the thread like that without it distorting at all and without any resistance. So that will tell you whether you've got your tension right. So once you've got to this point, you've got your wraps on your needle and you've got your tension right, I like to put my finger on those wraps because we're going to move our needle back and we're going to go down through the fabric just away from where that thread came out. Now, one mistake that people make is that they go down through the same hole, and what happens then is that your knot just pulls straight through to the back and you end up with nothing. So leave a couple of, let me come in a little bit closer. You need a couple of fibres between where the thread comes out and where the needle goes back in. And I just want to catch the point of my needle in there. I'm not going to pull through just yet because I need to do something with this. Now if I pull straight through, you might get a perfect French knot, or this excess thread here is going to form a loop all by itself and you'll end up with a loop on your knot. So what we need to do is just pull on that working thread until the wraps that are around the needle are sitting on the fabric. So they pull all the way down, they're tight around the needle and they're sitting on the fabric. And we're going to keep hold of this thread until the last moment. So at this point I'm going to pull my thread through, I'm going to let go now, and that gives me a perfect French knot sitting on the surface of the fabric. Okay, so I'll show you that again. So we're going to come through the fabric from the back. Should say I'm using pearl cotton, by the way. I always demonstrate stitches with pearl cotton. I think it's clearer. So we're going to hold the thread towards ourselves, needle on the top, and we're going to wrap. Let's just do 2 this time and I'll show you the difference. So finger on that wrap around the needle, point of the needle back in just a couple of fibres away, and we're going to pull on the working thread until the wraps sit on the fabric. Keep hold of that working thread, keep it taut, and we're going to pull through. There we go. And so we've got a smaller knot now. So I'll show you one more time. We're going to pull through, thread towards us, needle on the thread, wrap over the top. I'm just going to do 1 wrap this time. And we're going to take the point down through the fabric, pull tight, hold on to that working thread and pull through, so we get an even smaller knot. So the key with French knots is that it's better, if you want a tight, precise knot like this, it's better to really to increase the amount of thread you're using. So you could double up your pearl cotton, you could use more strands of a stranded cotton to get different sizes of knots. You can wrap multiple times up to about 3, 4 at a push, but then it starts getting a bit leggy and long and sitting a bit loose on the fabric. So ideally, if you want a controlled knot like that, you need to increase the thickness of thread rather than the number of wraps. Now you can play with a French knot and do loads of wraps and do a very loose French knot, and so we break all the rules to do these. So we're going to do too many wraps. We're going to still come down a little way, but I'm not going to pull on that working thread. I'm just going to let it sit loose, and you can see those wraps are really untidy on the needle, and when I pull through I get a very loopy, messy knot, and sometimes that can create some really lovely texture. I love doing this if I'm creating sort of undergrowth or foliage or moss, something like that. It works really nicely to create texture. So you just ignore all the rules, do your wraps, don't pull anything tight and pull through, and you end up with these lovely textural knots. So you can see the difference very clearly. This is done the correct way with lots of tension. This is breaking all the rules with no tension, and you get some lovely loops and sort of bundles of thread that can work really nicely. So different ways to play with a French knot, but if you want a nice neat French knot like this, it's all about the tension. So now we know the stitch, I'm going to gather some bits and pieces so that we can create. Okay, here's my lilac felt. I've drawn my border on. I've had to dig through. This is not a colour I use very often, and so I don't actually have that much. I've got a really nice Natalie Stewart silk thread, which I'm sure is going to come in handy, and I've got some anchor pearl cotton in this sort of dusky lilac, which works quite nicely. I've got a Sheepy's Maxi Sweet Treat. I get asked about these all the time. I only have seen them to buy in flesh at textile shows, so I picked mine up at Yarndale. Anne Brooke sells them in her shop, handmade. I'll try and put a link down in the description below. I think you can get them from a company called Rito Hobby or Rito Hobby, and Wool Warehouse does some Sheepy's threads. These are really, they're sort of crochet weight, but they're really nice to sew with. So I get asked about these all the time. They're the places that I get them from, but I'm sure they are available elsewhere in the world as well. I've got that one, which is colour 226, and I've got this sort of bluish lilac as well. I thought that might add a nice bit of contrast. I've got a different kind of thread. This is Raj Mahal Art Silk, and this is shade number 111. They tend to follow the anchor shade numbers, these, and they come in these twisted skeins. They're not difficult to use, so if you're new to thread, don't panic. So you leave the end with the tag, go to the other end, and you cut right through the whole lot and untwist. These are a divisible thread, so just untwist the skein, and we need to just find one thread in here. So just sort of keep untwisting it until the individual strands of thread start emerging. My hands are really cold, so I'm a bit fingers and thumbs. So here's a strand here, and we're going to pinch at the top, and I'm just going to pull, and that will pull all the way through. The top stays intact and your skein stays together. You can straighten it back out if you want to, and you've got a decent length there, and you can see there it divides up really nicely, so you can split that down and use individual strands if you want to. So I've got that. I've also got a couple of variegated threads. So this one has got blue tones. This one's a bit more sort of candy coloured, but I think the general tone of it is lilac. So you might think that's a bit of a cheat. I may or may not use it. We'll see how we go. Now, the colour and the stitch threw me. Initially, when I pulled out kite, I thought, oh, that's nice, I'll do a kite. I wonder if I can make the sky work with lilac. But then I pulled out French knot and it didn't sit very nicely. So I sat doodling and came up with this, which is a fish. I started thinking of the rainbow fish, which is sort of bluey lilac-y tones. That children's book, I don't know if you've come across it. And although this isn't very rainbow fish shaped, I thought we might be able to do something nice here with our little fish, and maybe we could use some French knots as bubbles, and we might be able to create some kind of weed. I did this isn't something weird. I did start by thinking about how I could use French knots on a kite and didn't really like it, and then thought, I wonder if a kite shape would work as a tail, and I wonder if it would work as fins as well, and it did. So these are little kite shapes. I don't know if you can tell there, and then the fin on the side. So that's where I'm heading with this one. Lilac fabrics are a different story altogether. I've got almost none. So I've managed to find that little tiny scrap, and I did a wall hanging in olive and purple and had these two fabrics left over. So don't know what you think about a floral fish, but that's literally all I've got to work with. So that's what we're going to do. So I've cut myself a couple of templates. I've got a large one that's going to be the body of the fish, and then I cut a small one for the fins and things like that. And I have drawn round that onto some fuser web. So I just need one large kite shape, and then I want two for the tail, two for the fins on the top and bottom, and one for the fin on the side. So I'm going to cut that out. Let's get the larger kite shape. So if you're new, we've used Bonder Web a few times. Best not to cut your shape out precisely initially, because it just makes cutting it much more difficult. What shall I go for? Shall I go for this one? We could almost imagine that as scales, couldn't we? Could we? I don't know. Or the stories we tell ourselves. Right, so I'm going to pop my kite shape on there, and be very naughty and not use parchment, because I have got some. I could have used it. I don't think I had any. I'm just going to press that in place. So fuser web is a fusible adhesive. We have used it before. If I bring it up close, hopefully you'll be able to see. If we focus. Right, so hopefully you can see there that there's a texture on the back. Now that is glue. That sort of lined texture is glue, and this side is paper. So you draw your shape on the paper, and then you put the glue side down onto the back of your fabric. So the wrong side of your fabric gets the glue side, and we press it with an iron. The iron melts that glue and fuses it to your fabric. So that is nice and secure now. Then we cut it out. So this is where we cut it precisely, and leaving the precise cutting to this point means that you are guaranteed to have glue right up to the very edges of your shape. If you cut it precisely initially, you are either going to have to cut into your shape and make it slightly smaller to get glue to the edge, or you have to eyeball it and cut alongside, and you tend to end up with little fabric burrs. You get a really precise cut if you do it this way around and glue right to the very edge. And the other thing to note with Bondaweb is that whatever you make will be flipped, so we don't need to worry about it at the moment because we're using symmetrical shapes. But if you're doing lettering or shapes that have a right way and a wrong way, because we've glued the shape right side up on the back of our fabric, we're going to flip that over to attach it to our felt, and that means it's going to be reversed. So if you're doing lettering, you have to do it backwards. You have to make all your letters backwards, otherwise they won't be the right way round. So when we're happy that we've cut our shape out, we're going to peel the back. So there are lots of brands of this: Bondaweb, Fuseweb, Heat and Bond, Heat and Seal. They all essentially are the same. I'm really enjoying this Fuseweb because the paper peels off really easily when it's fused, but doesn't seem to be detaching from the glue at all while I'm working with it. And sometimes Bondaweb detaches from the glue and you end up with potentially quite a lot of mess. So we will press that. I'm just going to leave it there for a minute. Now, do we have different fins, or let's do them all in this sort of, I don't know what is that, argyle pattern? It's kind of like a tartan, but not quite. Right, that's how it's going to look. So I'm just going to take these pieces off because I don't want them to move while I'm attaching. So I'm going to put a bit of parchment over the top, and it helps to keep things where they belong and save them moving around too much. And I'm just going to press that on. So the glue is going to remelt and fuse to the felt like that. So that is nice and secure now. Right, let's do fins first of all. And there we go, that's the basis of our fish. Right, I'm going to thread up some needles and get my scales out, and let's have a play with French knots. Right, I have got some little tiny lilac sequins. I'd forgotten I'd got them, and the thought just came to me that the rainbow fish obviously has got a shiny scale, and that's what, talking about the rainbow fish, that's what made me think, oh, I've got some sequins. So I thought I'd use this lilac-y variegated thread just to add a little bit of variety. But it's possible to add sequins with French knots. So I just want to create some guidelines for myself. So I just want to maybe create a curve around where the face will be, like this, just as a bit of a guide. And I'm going to add some sequins. So let's start here. I'm going to come up through the fabric, go through my sequin, and then I'm going to put a French knot. So 2 wraps, French knot on the surface, and that is going to be how my sequin is held in place. So that French knot is bigger than the hole in the sequin and will hold it in place. So I can go along a little bit further, pick up a sequin, couple of wraps, back through the sequin and pull tight to make my French knot. And these French knots are obviously going to vary in colour as I stitch along. Which is going to add a little bit more excitement. So I'm not going to cover it, I want my fabric to show through, but I think I'm going to put a line of sequins along each of the lines I've drawn on my fish. And then I'll come back. You can also hold sequins on with beads. You could do a bead and a French knot as well if you wanted to. But I think that is looking very fish scaly. I'm liking it. Oh, I'm glad that thought came to me. Right, so I'm going to add lots of those and then we'll come back and do a little bit more work on other parts of the fish. Okay, here we go. Here's our little rainbow fish so far. I've got some of the art silk. I've threaded 2 strands and I was just going to put some long straight stitches along the fins just to secure them in place. So most of these fusible adhesives that we've used say that they are permanent, but in my experience, particularly when they don't attach very well to felt, and in my experience when you're stitching around them they tend to sort of let go a little bit, and so I almost always add stitch to the surface because it just makes it more secure. So just on each fin like this I'm going to add a little fan of stitches. You can see that one's loosening up. We can press it again just to help it out, but it is lifting up a little bit. So just put a little fan of stitches in that shimmery thread and I'll add that to all of the other fins and the tail. Okay, I've put in my fin stitching and I've just put some running stitch just around the point there, and you'll see I've also added a black sequin for the eye. I attached it in the same way. I used the art silk though and it was a little bit fine to make a big enough French knot, so I just put a little running stitch over the top and bottom. I might go over that, in fact I'm going to. I don't like the way it looks, so I'm just going to get a pen, black pen, and colour over that thread, and I much prefer that. It makes the French knot stand out a bit better. It's a bit of a cheat, but I won't tell if you don't. So I want to put some bubbles and I'm going to use this lilac-y blue sheepies thread. So I'm going to put some French knot bubbles, and you might see there on my mat I've also found some fairly chunky seed beads. I think they're size, I'm going to say they're size 8. What have I done here? Nothing. Just caught a little fibre of felt. So I can put French knots, and I've got they're sort of oily. They are lilac, but they've got an oily quality to them. They're sort of pearlescent, so I can put some of those in as well to create some bubbles for my fish. Something like that. And then I thought it might be nice to put in some weeds just to sort of give our fish an environment to be in. So I'm going to do these with a little bit of running stitch. I'm just going to do this at the bottom. Let's draw in some lines. So I want some wavy lines coming up like that. You can have them coming as if they're going behind the fish as well. We could have put those in first, really. Might put another one in as well. So I'm just going to running stitch up these lines. I'll just do one and show you how I'm going to do it. Make the stitches longer than the gaps between them. Don't pull too tight or you'll pucker your fabric. So just running stitch like that. So just up these running stitch lines, I'm going to do some of those very loose French knots to create a little bit of sort of leafiness attached to those stems. A bit like that. So I'm going to add in some weed like that. I think if I do it all in this thread it's going to be a bit much, so I think I might add in some of the other lilac threads as well, just to keep it lilac. So I do like the effect of that thread, but I think it's going to be a bit much if I do it all like that. So yeah, I'm going to do those stitch around the outside and then I'll come back and show you the finished fish. And here we go. Here's our little fish with his shiny scales. Maybe it's a she, with her shiny scales and some little French knot and running stitch weeds, all made out of kite shapes. I hope that counts as lilac-y enough. So we've done a landscape one this week. I'm going to grab the book. Oh, we're getting all sparkly. Look, we were sparkly last week as well, weren't we? So we've gone all sequin mad for the last couple of weeks. It's spring fever, clearly. I'm quite liking these pastel colours for Easter, because it's Easter Sunday today. So we've got the Easter fish, it would seem, and very spring Easter egg, kind of mini egg colours tucked in there. Where's my glue? Right, let's get some glue on the page. Pop it in. Having said that it's Easter Sunday, I have no idea what the date is, the 20th. So that is the 20th of the 4th, 2025. And let's pop in our picks. excuse the noise of the bin outside being wheeled back up the drive. So we had lilac, that was our colour. Our stitch was kite, no, our shape was kite, and our stitch was a French knot. So, troubled me at first, but turned out to be quite nice little combination. So there we go, that's our pick of the pots for this week. Really looking forward to seeing what you create with these prompts. Don't forget to share. We've got a private Facebook group and I'll link that down in the description below. If you're posting on Instagram, use hashtag FSHwingingit2025 and don't forget to tag me at Feather Stitch House to make sure I see your post. Thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful Easter if you celebrate Easter, and a restful spring afternoon if you live in the Northern Hemisphere. I realise that I'm alienating who knows how many people here. Have a great Sunday and enjoy the weather wherever you are in the world. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll be back again next week for another pick. Bye!